You are standing on a platform. The train is behind you. The air smells like wood smoke and bodies. Your fingers are wrapped around a piece of paper. Your name is written on it. Not by you. Someone pulls your arm. You stumble forward. There are men, dozens of them, watching. One of them steps closer. He looks at your face the way someone examines livestock. He nods. Someone else writes something down. He do not speak his language. He does not ask your name. You realize you have just been chosen. You are a picture bride. You left Japan 3 weeks ago. You crossed an ocean you had never seen. You brought one photograph of the man you were supposed to marry. In the photograph, he looks young, clean, successful. The photograph was taken 15 years ago. The man standing in front of you now is not the man in the photograph. He is older. His back is bent. His hands are scarred. He works in the sugarcane fields of Hawaii, or the vegetable farms of California, or the lumber camps of Washington. He paid a matchmaker. The matchmaker showed him your photograph. You were told you would marry a businessman, a landowner, a man of status. You were lied to. But the ship has already left. Your family has already been paid. You are standing in a country where you do not speak the language. You have no money, no ticket home, no rights. The man takes your bag. You follow him. This is your marriage. Between 1908 and 1924, more than 20,000 Japanese and Korean women arrived in the United States as picture brides. They were part of a system designed to solve a problem. The problem was simple. There were not enough women. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, thousands of Asian men immigrated to the United States to work on railroads, in mines, on farms. They were laborers. They were not allowed to bring families. Immigration laws restricted Asian women from entering the country. By 1910, in some Western states, Japanese men outnumbered Japanese women 15 to 1. The men were alone. They aged. They grew desperate. The solution was the picture bride system. Matchmakers operated networks across the Pacific. They collected photographs of unmarried women in Japan, Korea, Okinawa. They showed these photographs to men in America. The men chose. The women were given photographs in return. Often the photographs were old. Often they were of someone else entirely. The women were told they would marry landowners, shop owners, men of education. They were told America was the land of opportunity. Most of the women who agreed to come were poor. Many were from rural villages. Some were orphans. Some were widows. Some had families with too many daughters and not enough food. They signed contracts. Their families received payments. The matchmakers took fees. Then the women boarded ships. The journey across the Pacific took 2 to 4 weeks. The women traveled in steerage. They were crowded into compartments below deck. The air was thick. Many became sick. When they arrived at Angel Island in San Francisco or at ports in Hawaii, they were processed like cargo. Immigration officials examined them, checked their paperwork, verified their photographs. If the photograph did not match closely enough, they were sent back. If they were sick, they were sent back. If they were pregnant, they were sent back. If they passed inspection, they were allowed to enter. Their husbands were waiting. The meeting happened quickly. There was no courtship, no engagement, no ceremony in the traditional sense. You met your husband at the immigration station, or at the dock, or at a train platform. You had never spoken to him. You had never heard his voice. He looked at you. You looked at him. Sometimes there was disappointment in his eyes. You were not as young as he expected, not as beautiful as your photograph suggested. Sometimes there was disappointment in your eyes. He was older than you were told, poorer than you were promised. But there was no time for disappointment. Even at the port, a clerk signed papers. Your husband signed papers. You were told to sign. You signed. You were now a wife. Your husband took you to his home. The home was not a home. It was a shack, a tent, a single room shared with other men. There was no furniture, no privacy. The floor was dirt, or wood with gaps wide enough to see the ground below. You had been told you would live in a house. This was not a house. Your husband worked 14 hours a day in the fields, or in the cannery, or in the mines. You worked beside him. There was no rest, no adjustment period. No time to learn English or to grieve the life you left behind. You woke before dawn. You worked until after dark. Your back ached. The sun burned your skin. You cooked. You cleaned. You washed clothes in cold water. You mended torn fabric. You bore children. You did this alone. Your husband was not cruel, not always, but he was exhausted, broken by labor. He had been promised a life in America. He had been lied to as well. But you could not leave. At what point does survival stop being survival and become something else entirely? Write your thoughts in the comments. If you believe these stories should not remain buried, like the video. Leaving was impossible. Legally, you were bound. Under U.S. immigration law, your status in the country depended entirely on your husband. If he divorced you, you could be deported. If he abandoned you, you could be deported. If you left him, you could be arrested. You had no money. You did not speak English. You had no family in the country. No legal protections. If you tried to leave, where would you go? The police would not help you. The courts would not help you. Immigration officials would not help you. Your husband knew this. If he wanted to beat you, he could. If he wanted to lock you inside, he could. If he wanted to sell your labor to another man, he could. Some picture brides were forced into prostitution. Their husbands took them to cities and sold them to brothels. The women had no ability to refuse. No one came to rescue them. Some picture brides were worked to death. The labor in the fields and canneries was relentless. Women miscarried. Women died in childbirth. Women died of exhaustion. Some picture brides were killed. In 1920, a Japanese picture bride named Tsuya Takahashi was beaten to death by her husband in Seattle. Her husband was arrested. He served 8 months in jail. In 1922, a Korean picture bride named Kim Soon-im disappeared in the Sacramento Valley. Her body was never found. Her husband reported her missing 2 weeks after she vanished. No investigation was ever conducted. These cases were not rare. They were common enough to be unremarkable. Why do you think the system allowed this to continue when the cruelty was so visible? Write your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe if you don't want these stories buried. You gave birth. There was no hospital, no midwife. Sometimes there was another woman. Sometimes there was no one. You delivered your child on a mat or on a bed if you were fortunate. You wrapped the baby in whatever cloth you had. Your husband did not help. This was not his work. You recovered for 2 days, maybe 3. Then you returned to the fields. You carried your baby on your back as you worked. You bent over rows of crops with the weight of the child pulling at your spine. You nursed between shifts. You kept working. Your children grew up in the fields. They learned to walk between furrows. They learned to pick fruit before they learned to read. They did not attend school. Or if they did, they attended schools that were segregated, underfunded, taught by teachers who did not hide their contempt. The children of people who were never supposed to stay. In 1924, the United States passed the Immigration Act. The law banned all immigration from Asia. No more picture brides. No more Japanese immigrants. No more Korean immigrants. The system ended, but the women who had already come did not disappear. They remained. They raised children in a country that despised them. They worked land they would never own. They built communities that would be torn apart. In 1941, when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, the picture brides and their families were declared enemy aliens. Over 100,000 people of Japanese descent, most of them American citizens, were forced into internment camps. They were given days to pack their belongings. They lost their homes, their businesses, their land. The picture brides, many of them now elderly, were loaded onto trains. Again, this time to camps surrounded by barbed wire. They did not resist. There was no point. They had learned long ago, you do not resist the system. What do you think it means to be promised a future and then systematically have every piece of it taken away? Write your thoughts in the comments. This channel exists to show what was hidden. If this matters to you, share this video. Most picture brides did not write their stories. They could not. Many were illiterate. Many were too ashamed. Many believed their suffering was simply what women endured. A few left letters, diaries, oral histories recorded late in life. In one testimony, a picture bride named A. Miyasaki said, "When I saw my husband for the first time, I wanted to jump into the ocean, but I had nowhere to go, so I stayed."
Another, a woman identified only as Mrs. K, said, "I worked until my hands bled. My husband said this was what wives do."
I believed him. I had no one to tell me otherwise. These testimonies are rare. Most picture brides left nothing behind. No letters, no diaries, no photographs. When they died, they were buried in unmarked graves, or in graves marked only with numbers. Their children sometimes did not know their mother's real names. The names they used in America were often not the names they were born with. There are no memorials for picture brides, no monuments, no museums dedicated to their experience. In history textbooks, they are mentioned in a single sentence. If at all, they are described as mail order brides, a term that makes them sound like objects, commodities, things that were ordered and delivered. They were women, they were daughters, wives, mothers. They crossed oceans. They built lives in a country that did not want them. They endured systems designed to use them and discard them. They were essential, and they were erased. Why do you think history chooses to erase the women who survived systems like this instead of honoring them? Write your thoughts in the comments. If you believe their names should be remembered, leave a comment with the name of any picture bride you've discovered in your own research. The picture brides were not the only ones. Across America, other systems operated on the same logic. Between 1854 and 1929, over 200,000 children were sent west on orphan trains. They were taken from cities like New York and Boston. Many were not orphans. They were children of immigrants, children of the poor, children whose parents could not afford to keep them. They were loaded onto trains and shipped to rural towns. When the trains stopped, The children were lined up on platforms. Farmers and townspeople inspected them, examined their teeth, felt their muscles. Then they chose. The children who were not chosen were loaded back onto the trains, sent to the next town. Some found families, some found labor, some found nothing. In the American South and West, women were recruited as mail-order brides to settle frontier territories. They were promised land, wealth, respectability. They arrived to find isolation, poverty, violence. Some were abandoned, some were abused, some were killed. The systems were different, the geography was different, but the structure was the same. Take people who have no power, promise them something, use them, erase them. What does it say about a society that builds itself on systems designed to exploit the powerless and then forgets them? Write your thoughts in the comments. Like this video if you think these systems should be taught in schools, not hidden. The picture brides did not speak about their experiences, not to their children, not to their grandchildren. When asked, they said, "It was hard, but we survived." They did not describe the hunger, the beatings, the humiliation of being examined like animals, the terror of arriving in a country where they had no voice, no rights, no future except the one their husbands allowed. They kept silent because silence was survival. If you complained, you were ungrateful. If you resisted, you were dangerous. If you spoke the truth, you were deported. And so the women said nothing. But silence is not the same as consent. Silence is not the same as acceptance. Silence is what you do when every other option has been taken from you. You still have the photograph, the one you were given before you left Japan, the one of the man you thought you would marry. You keep it in a drawer, or in a box under your bed. You do not look at it anymore. It is a lie, but it is also the only thing you brought with you that is still yours. Your husband never asked about it. He knows what it represents. A promise that was never kept. You do not throw it away, because throwing it away would mean admitting that you came to this country for nothing, that you crossed an ocean for a lie, that you sacrificed everything for a system that never cared whether you lived or died. So you keep the photograph, and you stay silent. What do you carry with you from systems that broke you but didn't destroy you completely? Subscribe to ensure stories like this are never forgotten. Your daughter grows up watching you. She sees you wake before dawn. She sees you work until your hands crack and bleed. She sees you bow your head when your husband raises his voice. She swears she will never be like you. She will speak English perfectly. She will go to school. She will marry someone she chooses. She does not understand. She does not understand that you came to this country so she could make those choices, that every meal she eats, every dress she wears, every year she spends in school is built on your labor, your silence, your endurance. She does not understand that you were once her age, that you once had dreams, that you once believed the promises you were told. She will not understand until she is much older. By then, you will be gone, and she will have no way to ask you what it was like, because you never told her. The last group of picture brides arrived in 1924. They disembarked at Angel Island. They went through inspection. They met their husband. They signed papers. Then the door closed behind them. No more picture brides would come. The women who were already here were stranded. They would age in a country that had never wanted them. They would raise children who would be seen as perpetual foreigners. They would work land they could never own. In 1942, they would be forced into camps. In the 1950s and 60s, their grandchildren would be born as American citizens, but still asked, "Where are you really from?" The picture brides built communities. They opened businesses. They formed mutual aid societies. They survived, but they did so knowing they would never be recognized, never be honored, never be remembered. How many women do you think are written out of history simply because their survival wasn't convenient to document? Write your thoughts in the comments. You die in 1965. You are 73 years old. You die in a small house in California or Hawaii or Washington. Your children are there. Your grandchildren are there. They cry. They hold your hand. They say prayers in English, in Japanese. They bury you in a cemetery on the edge of town. Your gravestone has your name, your birth year, your death year. It does not say, "Picture bride." It does not say, "Crossed an ocean alone." It does not say, "Worked until her hands bled so her children could go to school." It says nothing about the train, the platform, the photograph, the man who is not the man in the picture. Your grandchildren do not know your story. They know you were strong. They know you were quiet. They know you came from Japan. They do not know why. In the 1980s, historians begin to research the picture bride system. They find ship manifests, immigration records, a handful of letters. They find almost no photographs of the women themselves. The women were always behind the camera, never in front of it. In the 2000s, a few oral histories are recorded. Daughters and granddaughters of picture brides speak on behalf of women who never spoke for themselves. They describe the labor, the isolation, the fear. They say, "She never complained." They say, "She did what she had to do." They say, "She never told us everything." There is no national memorial for picture brides, no museum dedicated to their experience, no monument, no plaque. There is no train station named after them, no holiday, no recognition. In textbooks, they are a footnote, a sentence. The picture brides built America. They worked the fields, they raised the children, they created the communities that would become Japanese American culture. And America erased them, not by violence, by silence. If you could ask one question of a picture bride who never had the chance to tell her story, what would it be? This channel exists to tell the stories that were never supposed to be told. If you believe these voices matter, subscribe. If you believe these women should be remembered, share this video, because if we don't tell these stories, no one will.